Ethan Carter, a young professional, moved into a vintage Chicago apartment building. He loved the high ceilings and the old-world charm. The building was mostly quiet, which he appreciated. His apartment, 6A, was perfect. Well, almost perfect. Ethan quickly learned about his neighbors. Mrs. Goldstein across the hall loved her cats. The couple downstairs argued loudly every Tuesday, but 6B, the apartment next door, remained a mystery. The nameplate was empty. No sounds ever came from the apartment. Ethan found it strange. He mentioned it to Mrs. Goldstein one afternoon. Her response was a nervous laugh and a quick, "Some things are best left alone, dearie." Days turned into weeks. The silence from 6B remained constant. Ethan tried to brush it off. Maybe the apartment was empty. Maybe the tenant traveled a lot. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, Ethan thought he heard a muffled cough coming from 6B. He pressed his ear against the wall. Silence. He wondered if he imagined it. The doubt gnawed at him. He began paying more attention to 6B. He checked the mailbox regularly. It was always empty. He watched for any signs of life, a flickering light, a moving shadow, nothing. 6B was a void, a silent enigma that both fascinated and disturbed him. One night, Ethan returned home late from work. He was surprised to see a light under 6B's door. Someone was home. He paused, his heart pounding. After weeks of silence, his neighbor was finally there. Ethan gathered his courage and knocked lightly. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. He bent down and peered through the peephole. What he saw sent a chill down his spine. Standing just inside the doorway was a tall, gaunt figure in a dark coat. Its face was obscured by the shadows. The figure stared directly at him, unmoving. Ethan jerked back from the peephole, his heart racing. He stumbled back to his apartment, fear gripping him. He couldn't explain the dread that washed over him. He tried to rationalize. Maybe his neighbor was just startled. Maybe he had looked unfriendly. That night, Ethan jolted awake to a sharp knocking sound. It seemed to be coming from the wall he shared with 6B. He checked his clock. 3 a.m. He lay there, listening intently. The knocking continued, rhythmic and persistent. For the next few nights, the knocking returned at the same time. 3 a.m. sharp. It was always the same. 3 quick raps, a pause, and then 3 more. Ethan's paranoia grew. Was his neighbor sending him a message, or was something else at play? Desperate for answers, Ethan purchased a security camera. He had been hearing strange noises at night, and the knocking on his door was becoming more frequent and unsettling. He installed it discreetly, pointing towards his front door, hoping it would capture any unusual activity. He hoped to capture his neighbor entering or leaving 6B, the source of his suspicions. He needed to know he wasn't imagining things. The anxiety was eating him up inside. The next morning, he reviewed the footage. His heart sank. There was nothing. No movement, no visitors. 6B's door remained closed all night. Not a single soul had entered or exited. The knocking had occurred again at 3 a.m., but there was no sign of his neighbor. The hallway was eerily empty. Ethan felt a shiver of terror. The mystery was deepening, and he felt more alone than ever. Was the knocking coming from inside his own apartment? The thought sent chills down his spine. He scrubbed through the footage, looking for anything unusual. Then he saw it. His breath caught in his throat. At precisely 3:02 a.m., a figure flickered into view in his doorway. It was faint, but unmistakable. It was the same gaunt figure he had seen through the peephole, the figure that haunted his nights. It stood motionless for a moment, staring at the camera, before vanishing into thin air. Ethan's fear turned into sheer panic. Ethan was now terrified. He couldn't deny the evidence. Something was deeply wrong. He needed to talk to someone, to get help. That's when he decided to visit the building manager. He rushed to the manager's office, his mind racing. He burst into the office, breathlessly explaining about the silent neighbor, the knocking, and the figure in the security footage. The manager listened patiently, a concerned look on his face. When Ethan finished, the manager sighed. "Ethan," he said slowly, "there's no apartment 6B. Ethan stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "I live next to apartment 6B. The manager shook his head. "Ethan, there's been a mistake. This building has no apartment with that number. You can check the floor plans." Ethan left the manager's office, his mind reeling. The conversation replayed in his head, each word echoing louder than the last. He felt like he was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. The streets seemed darker, more menacing. He stumbled back to his apartment, the weight of the manager's words pressing down on him. It didn't make sense. How could his neighbor not exist? He had seen his neighbor. They had exchanged greetings, even shared a few conversations. He had seen the apartment. It was right there, just across the hall. Had he lost his mind? Was he imagining things? The doubt gnawed at him. Desperate for answers, Ethan turned to the internet. He needed to know if anyone else had experienced something similar. He found solace in a Reddit forum dedicated to unexplained phenomena. The stories there were eerily familiar. He recounted his experience in a post titled, "My Neighbor Doesn't Exist." He poured out every detail. He described the silent apartment, the 3 a.m. knocking, and the ghostly figure in his doorway. It was all too real. He uploaded the security camera footage as proof. The response was immediate. People were intrigued and horrified. His post went viral, garnering thousands of comments. The internet was buzzing with theories and speculations. Some people offered rational explanations, suggesting sleep paralysis or hallucinations. Others weren't so sure. They believed him. They shared similar stories, tales of haunted apartments and unexplained occurrences. Ethan realized he wasn't alone in his fear. Ethan's story became an internet sensation, sparking heated debates and endless speculation. Paranormal enthusiasts flocked to the Reddit thread, eager to dissect every detail. Theories ranged from the mundane to the bizarre. Some suggested that Ethan was experiencing a haunting, that the figure in his doorway was the restless spirit of a previous tenant. Others proposed a more sinister explanation, speculating that Ethan had stumbled into a dimensional rift, a gateway to another reality. A few even questioned Ethan's sanity, suggesting that the stress of city life had finally gotten to him. Despite the lack of concrete answers, one thing was certain. Ethan's story had struck a nerve, tapping into a collective fear of the unknown that resonated with people around the world. Weeks turned into months, and the once vibrant discussions began to dwindle. The buzz surrounding Ethan's story gradually faded, replaced by newer, more sensational mysteries that captured the public's attention. But for those who had followed his case closely, questions lingered, refusing to be silenced. What had Ethan truly experienced during those harrowing days? Was he the victim of a cruel hoax, a figment of his own imagination, or something far more sinister lurking in the shadows? Ethan continued to post on Reddit, updating his followers on any new developments, no matter how small. He claimed the knocking persisted, though it was less frequent now, almost as if whatever was causing it was losing interest. He also mentioned a growing sense of unease, a feeling that he was constantly being watched, even in the safety of his own home. Then, without warning, Ethan's updates stopped. His account went silent, leaving his followers in a state of confusion and worry. Concerned Reddit users tried to contact him, but their messages went unanswered, adding to the growing mystery. Ethan Carter had vanished, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a chilling reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved, echoing in the minds of those who dared to follow his story. With Ethan's sudden disappearance, a cloud of uncertainty hung over the community. But for a few dedicated followers, the mystery was far from over. Determined to uncover the truth, they took matters into their own hands. One user, who we'll call the Investigator, began to dig deeper into the enigmatic neighbor from apartment 6B. The Investigator started by reaching out to other residents in the building. Some were hesitant to talk, their eyes flickering with fear or suspicion. Others shared bits and pieces of their own experiences. One elderly woman recounted hearing strange noises late at night, while a young couple mentioned seeing shadowy figures in the hallway. The Investigator also scoured local records, looking for any information about the building's history and its residents. What they found was unsettling. Apartment 6B had a long history of tenants who moved in and out within a few months, often leaving without a trace. Some had even reported similar disturbances to what Ethan experienced. Determined to get to the bottom of it, the Investigator set up a series of hidden cameras in the hallway near 6B. The footage revealed something chilling, a shadowy figure moving in and out of the apartment at odd hours, always just out of clear view. It was as if the neighbor from 6B was aware of the cameras and deliberately avoiding them. The more the Investigator uncovered, the more questions arose. Who was the mysterious neighbor? What did they want? And most importantly, what had happened to Ethan Carter? The investigation had only just begun, and the trail was growing colder by the day. But for those who dared to seek the truth, there was no turning back. As the screen fades to black, a final message appears: to be continued. As the Investigator delved deeper, they stumbled upon a series of hidden secrets that painted a grim picture of apartment 6B's past. Through old newspaper clippings and forgotten online forums, a disturbing narrative began to unfold. It turns out the mysterious neighbor had a dark history that spanned decades. Previous tenants had reported not just disturbances, but also instances of missing pets, unexplained illnesses, and even sudden disappearances. One particularly chilling post from years ago detailed a young woman who vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a cryptic diary entry that mentioned the eyes watching from the shadows. Determined to uncover more, the Investigator managed to contact a former tenant who had lived in the building over 20 years ago. The tenant recounted eerie stories of strange rituals and whispered chants emanating from 6B late at night. He spoke of a sense of dread that seemed to permeate the very walls of the apartment, a feeling that something malevolent was always just out of sight. As these pieces of the puzzle came together, a horrifying theory began to take shape. The neighbor from 6B wasn't just a recluse with strange habits. They were part of something much darker, something that had been festering within those walls for years, preying on the unsuspecting. The Investigator knew they were onto something big, but with each revelation the danger grew. Whoever or whatever was behind the events in apartment 6B was determined to keep their secrets buried. The screen fades to black once more, leaving viewers with a chilling sense of anticipation. The truth was out there, but uncovering it would come at a great cost. To be continued. As the Investigator pieced together the sinister puzzle of apartment 6B, they knew they had to confront the neighbor to get to the bottom of this mystery. The air was thick with tension as they approached the door of 6B, their heart pounding in their chest. The door creaked open before they could knock, revealing the shadowy figure of the neighbor, their eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. "You're digging where you shouldn't be," the neighbor hissed, stepping forward with a menacing aura. The investigator felt a chill run down their spine but stood their ground. "I need answers," they demanded, their voice trembling but resolute. "What happened to the people who lived here? What are you hiding?" The neighbor's face twisted into a sinister smile. "Some secrets are meant to stay buried," they whispered, their voice low and threatening. Without warning, the neighbor lunged at the investigator, who barely managed to dodge the attack. The two struggled, the dim hallway echoing with the sounds of their scuffle. In the chaos, the investigator caught a glimpse of something disturbing inside the apartment, a shrine of sorts, filled with strange symbols and worn photographs of the missing tenants. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks. This was no ordinary neighbor. Summoning every ounce of strength, the investigator managed to break free and sprinted down the hallway, their mind racing. They had uncovered something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. As they escaped the building, the neighbor's chilling words echoed in their mind. "You can't run from the darkness." The screen fades to black, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, the tension palpable. The stakes had never been higher, and the true horror of apartment 6B was just beginning to reveal itself. To be continued. The investigator, heart still pounding from the encounter, knew they needed backup. They rushed to the nearest police station, hoping to find someone who would believe their harrowing tale. Inside the station, the bright fluorescent lights felt oddly comforting compared to the darkness of 6B. They approached the front desk, breathless. "I need to report something urgent. It's about apartment 6B, they gasped. The officer behind the desk raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Calm down, start from the beginning," the officer said, a hint of impatience in their voice. As the investigator recounted the chilling events, the officer's expression shifted from annoyance to disbelief. "Are you sure you're not imagining things? We get a lot of prank calls about haunted apartments," the officer said dismissively. Undeterred, the investigator sought out experts in the field of paranormal activity. They contacted renowned investigators, researchers, and even psychics, but each conversation ended in frustration. "Without concrete evidence, it's hard to take your claims seriously," one expert said, their tone patronizing. Feeling isolated and desperate, the investigator turned to online forums, hoping to find someone who had experienced something similar. The response was mixed. Some users shared their own eerie tales, while others mocked and ridiculed the story. Despite the skepticism and disbelief, the investigator remained determined. They knew what they had seen, and they were not about to give up. Gathering every piece of evidence they had, photos, recordings, and notes, they prepared for the next step. This was no longer just about solving a mystery. It was about uncovering a truth that others refused to see. As the screen fades to black, the tension builds. The investigators' resolve is clear, but the path ahead is fraught with challenges. Will they find the answers they seek, or will the darkness of 6B consume them? Stay tuned for the next chapter. The investigator, undeterred by the skepticism and ridicule, pored over every piece of evidence they had gathered. The photos, recordings, and notes were meticulously analyzed, but something still seemed to be missing. It was during one of these late-night sessions, under the dim glow of a desk lamp, that a breakthrough occurred. While reviewing the security camera footage frame by frame, the investigator noticed something they had initially overlooked. In one of the frames, just a fleeting moment, there was a shadow, a figure that did not belong. Enhancing the image, they could see more clearly, a silhouette standing in the hallway, just outside apartment 6B. Heart racing, The investigator cross-referenced this image with the timestamps of the disturbances. The figure appeared at the exact moments when the noises were reported. This was the concrete evidence they needed. Excited and with renewed energy, the investigator compiled the findings into a comprehensive report. They included the enhanced images, detailed notes, and a timeline of events. This was no longer just a collection of eerie anecdotes. It was a compelling case backed by visual proof. With this breakthrough, the investigator returned to the police station. This time they were armed with undeniable evidence. As they presented the findings to the officer, the skepticism slowly faded from the officer's face, replaced by a look of concern and intrigue. "We need to take this seriously," the officer finally admitted, calling in additional resources to further investigate apartment 6B. The breakthrough was not just a step forward in the investigation, it was a validation of the investigators' relentless pursuit of the truth. The mystery of 6B was closer to being solved, but new questions emerged. Who was the figure in the footage? What were they doing there? And why had they chosen 6B? As the screen fades to black, the sense of anticipation is palpable. The investigators' journey is far from over, but they are no longer alone. The quest for the truth continues, and the answers lie just beyond the next discovery. Stay tuned for the next chapter. The breakthrough had given the investigator the evidence they needed, but it also raised more questions than answers. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, they decided it was time for a direct approach. Armed with the enhanced images and a newfound sense of determination, the investigator headed to apartment 6B. The hallway outside 6B was eerily quiet, the air thick with tension. The investigator's heart pounded in their chest as they knocked on the door. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing the neighbor, a figure shrouded in shadows. "Who are you, and what have you been doing in 6B?" the investigator demanded, holding up the enhanced image as evidence. The neighbor's eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and something darker. "I don't know what you're talking about," they replied, their voice cold and unyielding. But the investigator was relentless. "I've seen the footage. You were there during the disturbances. Why?" The neighbor's facade began to crack. "You don't understand," they whispered, their voice trembling. "There's something in that apartment, something that shouldn't be there." The tension in the air was palpable as the investigator pressed on. "What do you mean? What is in 6B? Before the neighbor could respond, a loud noise echoed from within the apartment. Both the investigator and the neighbor turned towards the sound, their faces pale with fear. The neighbor's voice quivered as they spoke. "It's too late. It's already started." The confrontation had taken a dramatic turn, and the investigator realized that the mystery of 6B was far more sinister than they had imagined. As they stood in the dimly lit hallway, the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place. But with every answer came new questions, and the true nature of the danger lurking in apartment 6B was still unknown. As the screen fades to black, the sense of urgency and dread is overwhelming. The investigator's journey is far from over, and the real confrontation has only just begun. Stay tuned for the next chapter. The confrontation had left the investigator shaken, but not defeated. As they walked away from apartment 6B, the weight of what had transpired began to settle in. The neighbor's cryptic warning echoed in their mind, and the sense of an impending greater danger loomed over them. Cut to the investigator in their dimly lit office, staring at the enhanced images spread across their desk. The room is filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the soft hum of the city outside. The investigator's voice is filled with a mix of determination and uncertainty as they speak. What did the neighbor mean by "it's already started"? What is the true nature of the entity in 6B? These questions plague me, but I know I can't stop now. A montage of the past events flashes on the screen, moving into the new home, the eerie disturbances, the unsettling security footage, and finally, the confrontation with the neighbor. The images are interspersed with shots of the investigator poring over documents and footage, their brow furrowed in concentration. The voiceover continues, tinged with a hint of fear. Every step forward seems to uncover more questions than answers. The deeper I delve, the more I realize how little I truly understand. But one thing is clear, whatever is in apartment 6B is not just a threat to me, but to everyone around. A close-up shot of the investigator's face, eyes filled with resolve. I have to find out what it is. I have to stop it before it's too late. The scene fades to black, leaving viewers with a sense of urgency and anticipation for what comes next in the investigator's journey. The mystery of 6B is far from over, and the real challenge has only just begun. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where the investigation takes a darker turn, and the true nature of the threat is revealed. The night had fallen over the city, casting long shadows across the investigator's office. The tension in the air was palpable, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The investigator sat at their desk, eyes fixed on the latest piece of evidence, a letter, aged and worn, with a signature that sent chills down their spine. Cut to a flashback of the confrontation with the neighbor. The neighbor's face, previously shrouded in mystery, now clear and filled with an unsettling calmness. The voiceover continues, filled with a mixture of shock and revelation. It was him all along. The neighbor, the one who had seemed so ordinary, was the key to everything. His name was Ethan. A montage of Ethan's interactions with the investigator plays, each moment now tinged with a sinister undertone. The camera zooms in on Ethan's face, revealing a hidden malevolence that had gone unnoticed. He had orchestrated everything, the disturbances, the eerie happenings, even the security footage. It was all a part of his plan. But why? Cut back to the investigator, holding the letter with trembling hands. The voiceover is now laced with a sense of betrayal and urgency. The letter revealed his true motives. Ethan was a part of a secret society, one that thrived on fear and chaos. Apartment 6B was their headquarters, a place where they conducted their dark rituals and experiments. A rapid sequence of images flashes on the screen, ancient symbols, shadowy figures, and unsettling scenes from the past events. The voiceover grows more intense. Ethan's goal was to recruit new members, to spread their influence, and to plunge the city into darkness, and I was his next target. Cut to the investigator, their face resolute. The final words are spoken with determination and defiance. But now that I know the truth, I can fight back. I won't let Ethan and his society succeed. I will expose them, and I will put an end to their reign of terror, once and for all. The scene fades to black, leaving viewers with a sense of closure and anticipation for the final showdown. The mystery of 6B has been revealed, but the battle is far from over. Stay tuned for the final chapter, where the ultimate confrontation takes place, and the fate of the city hangs in the balance. The city slowly woke up from the nightmare that had gripped it. The investigator, now a local hero, stood on the balcony of their new apartment, far from the shadows of 6B. The morning sun cast a warm glow, a stark contrast to the darkness that once loomed over them. Cut to the investigator, walking through a park, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. Children are playing, people are laughing, and life seems to have returned to normal. But the camera zooms in on the investigator's face, revealing a hint of lingering unease. The battle was won, but the scars remain. The secrets of 6B, the dark rituals, and Ethan's sinister plans, They all left an indelible mark on my soul. Cut to a scene of the investigator flipping through a journal filled with notes, sketches, and photographs from the case. The voiceover continues, filled with a mixture of relief and melancholy. I moved on, but the mystery left a lasting impression. Every now and then, I still find myself looking over my shoulder, wondering if another shadow from the past might resurface. The scene shifts to the investigator meeting with a group of friends, sharing a laugh and clinking glasses. The atmosphere is light, filled with camaraderie and hope. But life goes on. I found new friends, new adventures, and a new purpose. The darkness of 6B no longer defines me. It's a part of my story, but not the end of it. The final shot is of the investigator standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the city as the sun sets. The voiceover is calm, yet filled with resolve. I will always remember the lessons I learned, the people I lost, and the courage it took to face the unknown. The mystery of 6B may never truly fade, but neither will my determination to seek the light. The scene fades to black, leaving viewers with a sense of hope and reflection. The journey has ended, but the story will live on in the hearts and minds of those who heard it.